Hey guys, welcome back to Chris and Retro. Tonight, I'm going to do another video here relative to abuse, mistreatment, fraud, those types of things in substance use treatment facilities, residential facilities or otherwise. There's a lot of it out there. And as I started a couple episodes ago about the work that I was going to start doing and the voice I was going to have because of a loved one of mine that's being abused. Um, I had not realized exactly how prevalent this was. I was suspicious it was because of how comfortable and insulated that this one facility is about what they're doing. Um, Fortunately, I'm inquisitive enough that I was able to, get to the truth on a lot of things. And tonight, what I'm going to do is share some tips on how to handle this whole situation, but also some things that I've walked into. Or I've walked into or observed or whatever. I have a new story for today to share with you on what it feels like and how it goes. I made a new contact that shared some information tonight that I'll be looking to grow that relationship as I progress on this work, specifically with exposing this type of thing. And then, talk a little bit about, some of the education that we can do to educate others around us. So with that, we'll get started. So if you haven't had a chance to watch the last video, please do. You'll get a sense of where I'm coming from this. But a quick recap. I've got a loved one that's in long-term treatment right now, and things started not to add up. We had some false allegations that were sent out about her performance, and it really put us in a jam relative to her situation and being home with our children. So with that, I got curious because it didn't make any sense. And so one of the tips I gave last time is if you have somebody that's in a long-term residential facility, make sure that they have a third party that's actually responsible for writing their scripts and responsible for their mental health counseling and responsible for their addiction counseling. Make sure that their primary support system for addiction and mental health issues is not at the residence. Why is that important? Well, as we go through this video, I've got more information that's also going to show you why it's so important. In our case, it's certainly proven to be infinitely important as we've got a bad actor. And we got a program that doesn't want that bad actor to get them in trouble. So they insulate. And this is going to wash, rinse, repeat, was my suspicion. And based on some of the things I'm finding out, that's actually true. So, our situation today, it's been weeks since we were able to get the girls connected with their mom. We there was a situation there that they were made some allegations and removed her ability to see the kids like completely, which was odd. And made it very difficult for us to make the connection for the children to be with their mother, which is ridiculous. Everything has been going fine. There's been no issues. She's had increasing opportunity to be with our kids. She's been fully working back and doing great with her work. I mean, everything's been going good. It was just a matter of finishing up what she was doing, get a completion and get out of there. And then all of a sudden things went screeching halt and it made no sense. We started to wonder, they got a lot of open beds. Is that it? Not sure, but it's a speculation I have. So I got curious about that. And anyway, so I'll give more information on that one in a minute. But as today, we actually got, by asking another counselor, not hers, she got permission to do the thing that she has the right to do, and that is see her children. Unfortunately, it has to be on site there, which is really awful for the kids, but at least they get to see mom. The other counselor gave a grace and said not 2.5 hours, but you can have, several hours. So we actually got quite a few hours there. Only to really infuriate her primary counselor, because the primary counselor wasn't even going to grant another weekend of her seeing her kids at all. So that is nothing but vendetta, irresponsible behavior, and there's nothing clinical about it. The primary diagnosis in this case makes that abuse, and no other scenario. So this is the same counselor that's already falsely reported to a court system about issues that we've since proven, and all those that received that report acknowledged that it was wrong. And so now they make up more excuses, and again, the beds aren't full. That's interesting to me. I don't know what that's all about. Well, today we got up there for the visit and everything was okay. There was, the place we normally go with the kids is downstairs. But there was another, um, area up a couple floors up, and there's cameras all in there, so that's fully observed. They checked our bags when we went in. The girls are all excited to see mom's excited to see the girls. Everything's great. Our bags are checked. We're literally right at so the office is right in front of me. If this monitor is the office door with the worker, there's a table next to it. They checked our bags, and we turned around and went in the elevator door that would be equivalent to that wall right behind me. So there is no obstruction, clear line of sight. Standing in the hall, saw us turn, hit the button, and go to the third floor to get out and go in a camera-filled room through camera-filled hallways and sit there quietly with our family and have time. No problem. Everything's good. And in fact, we've been up there probably 6 different times since she could start coming home. And when she was coming home, obviously we didn't even see the place. But early on, we were up there. So now all of a sudden we're having to go back up there. Never, ever has anybody even come towards us since we've been when we're in that facility. They leave us alone. This time we're there and no problems whatsoever. We're up there. Everything's settled in. I brought a laptop and a DVD player for the girls, so they got something more to do. There's games, and they're playing games. All stuff that we brought, snacks we brought. Girls and mom are having a good time. Everything seems to be like finally we get to spend time as a family best we can. About an hour and 20 minutes into it, her counselor, Tamisha, decides to come up and tell us we've got to move out. You can't be up here. Okay, so that was odd, but we were completely settled in. We'd been up there over an hour and 20 minutes in a facility that had us on camera the entire time. When she got to work, she decided to kick us out of this room. Okay, where can we go? Well, there's no other place to go. It's all full. So our options were to go into a room that's smaller than, certainly smaller, about the size of this office, and this office is really small, for 4 hours, or go in the cafeteria with our kids for 4 hours. So we went into the cafeteria. Not a great environment for us to be sitting there. Every other resident is there, and some of them are struggling in varying degrees, but they're still there. And we're fine. And we get all set back up again, everything laid out, everything's fine. Everybody's having a decent time. We've sucked it up and just dealt with it, realizing that this person's going to be antagonistic with us no matter what anyway. We're sitting there probably another, 45 minutes to an hour. She comes back in and tells us we've got to move. Now, where we're going to move, I don't know. It's snowing here in Western New York. We go outside. Oh yeah, she can't go outside. All this because that counselor was mad because she got granted a visit with her kids, and the visit was granted to be longer than what that counselor ever grants before. So instead, rather than just let it be, she comes in to work with nothing else going on. I watched her at her desk nodding off, looking at a monitor. I saw her doing that. And apparently that's how she operates most of the way through the day, but had time to come in and give us grief. So we pick up everything and realize that one of the other families had left, and we go down. Where do we go? Oh, we went into a playroom that was super small, but we spent about the last hour and a half or hour and 20 minutes in that room. Really small little room, but we're still together as a family, so we made it work. So not only were we in a situation where she has been held away from her kids, now we've got this situation going on. Now, what's dangerous about what she did is because they're positioning themselves as a treatment provider for this, they're reporting back into programs that can keep Sam away from her kids. And that's a problem because she's not doing anything wrong. So here's why I know what's up. I've been asking for the treatment plan for weeks. So that's the basis of how I knew that they were lying when they reported what they reported. And nobody can produce a treatment plan. So while we were there, I asked Sam to get her treatment plan. And it really upset the counselor. The counselor said, "What are you talking about?" Sam had to ask multiple times for a treatment plan. Now, if anybody's been any part of substance use in today's day and age of treatment, if you just go in the building and just kind of wander around, what is that? No, you sign a treatment plan to say, this is what we've agreed on. It's patient-centered care. You're deciding what your treatment is when you go through it. Now, there's certain gates and things like that, but you talk about your objectives and what you want to accomplish and what you're trying to do. And there's measurable objectives put in there. So we finally, after pushing, we got a document produced. It's here, and I'm not going to show the front of it. but I'm also, because I'm not quite ready to name everything that I'm going to name when this is all said and done. And I went through this thing, and every single concern I had is here. Every single requirement of this plan was completed, all of them, within the time frame that it was supposed to be completed by, and that was November 5th. November 5th. Now they've had no beds filled. And here we are, January 11th, in the new year. And now she's on high restrictions with no additional no communication about when this is ever going to end. It just keeps getting longer and longer and kicking the can. No communication about what to do and not do, just threats and allegations and nonsense and flashlights in her face and everything. Now, there's been a couple things since the last week of December and now that she has done to break the rules. But they're not anything to do with substance use disorder. They're house rules. They're house rules. And they're house rules that are based on this document in front of me are odd that they're taking this level of punitive measure with it. It's all vendetta, and it's all in their own documents, and their own performance that progressed her through the program up till now were consistent with the November 5th date, and then magically that started to become a problem. And it had nothing to do with her performance. Nothing. Because her progression was consistent with what the plan was, and she should have been out of there over 2 months ago. Now I'm exposing that because when it was exposed, when the lies were reported out of this program, then when we show up, stopping her from seeing her children, giving her no additional communication on when this is ever going to end, and she's staying because she's trying to be compliant with court requirements and everything else. The court's hearing this treatment provider saying all these things, and we have to keep going back and documenting that they're wrong. Thankfully, everybody involved is actually hearing us finally. And I think that we're on a better path relative to all that. But they're still saying that she's got to complete this program before we can settle everything out. And there's literally no sense of when this is ever going to end. She completed everything to be out of there by November 5th. And now we're in the middle of this nonsense. So I call that out because I want everybody to understand, and I'm hoping these people are watching this stinking thing. I know what you're doing. And I'm going to make sure that I educate every single person around me about what's actually happening in this specific case. And I can tell you if it's happening once, it's happened multiple times over. And they perhaps don't have somebody in their life that is as antagonistic as I can be. And when people start screwing with my family. And you are. And you're screwing with my kids. And you're screwing with the serenity and well-being of a person that's doing everything she can to recover. And that's abuse. So my last video that I made a connection. And so I've connected with that person this evening, and we're going to be meeting tomorrow. And apparently we're not the only one. This person said that they watched my show, and they had a similar experience in 2016 with a family member. That person has since made this a life work. That's how serious this is for families. In this case, their family member 8 years later still has scars. It was life-changing and will never trust the system again. That's what this treatment has done. Again, I want to qualify that not all treatment facilities are bad. And just as not all people struggling with addiction are unable to get better. There are situations that are nuanced to this with your person that's in the middle of this. For them to get better, it can't be in an environment that's creating an environment of additional trauma. This contact I have has made connections with the Department of Justice, lawyers, and other personnel to come to a place where this stuff is taken care of. She's aware of eliminating Kickbacks Recovery Act that was signed. She's aware of programs that deal with abuse and torture. And apparently, this is many families are experiencing what we're experiencing now. They leverage court systems to play games. Now, in this treatment plan, which is now documented and printed here, so if anybody tries to change it on the other end, I have what the original version of it is here now. So if there's any alteration of the document, I have the original. And in there, it's very clear that there's no other reason that they're keeping her there at least as of this November 5th date, other than to keep the beds filled. And then leverage the court system and her willingness to stay there so that she checked off every single thing the court system required so that she could be in front of her kids and back with her kids with no problems whatsoever. She's being compliant with every single thing in her life. And then this stuff starts. Now, is she perfect? No. Am I perfect? No. Are human beings that work in recovery programs perfect? Absolutely not. Are people in the work court system perfect? No. Are there all kinds of craziness and tough things and everything else in the recovery journey? Absolutely, emphatically, yes. For everybody involved, addiction is an absolute beast. It's a monster, and it hurts people in all capacities. The reason I'm getting so upset about this is because in the one place where you have to go through that holds the keys to the yard on things coming back together should not be using that as a weapon. Their job is to make sure that this person moves beyond and can have life of more meaning and fulfillment because they're finding recovery in a substantial way. Now, there's one other thing I'm going to share with you that I found interesting. And I will put that up now. Now, I realize this is an AI generated tool, but it does have the connections with it. I'm just not going to get into all the connections right now, but it's summarizing. On the right, you'll see the connecting links, but they're long documents. And I felt like I did peruse it. So it's not like I'm not just throwing AI at you. What the AI pulled out of were actually substantial reports. But the one thing the one document I read, it said about 75% of those come in report some kind of an issue. Again, people claim all kinds of things when they're having a hard time. Maybe they just don't want to be inside be trapped and told what to do. Who knows? I don't know what in all cases what that is. I wouldn't suggest that all of them are actual abuse, but there's a lot of people that say that type of thing. I can tell you that I didn't take this at face value. I actually took the time to get the documentation and found out that this does not make sense what's going on in our situation at all. And I found out that my hunch was correct. And now it's a matter of educating those around us so that they understand I'm not just some wingnut over here trying to defend my family. Now, what I'm going to share with you is an AI summary. And while the report in and of itself doesn't sound like it really supports what I'm saying, it actually does. And I'll share with you why. So if you look at this report, the very important thing is that you need to look at is due to the lack of comprehensive data on client mistreatment and drug treatment facilities. That's all I need to hear. There's a lack of data and everybody acknowledges it. However, there's other things I'll read. It says there is no definitive percentage available, but studies and reports suggest that a significant minority of clients experience some form of mistreatment, which with the rate likely varying depending on facility and its quality of care. I'm not even sure what a significant minority of clients experience. A significant minority. So I don't know, maybe what they're saying is that while the number isn't the total population, it's still pretty significant. But this is like, I've done multiple different searches on this and they all kind of come to the same thing. There's a prevalence of this in treatment facilities, a prevalence. And in this, they're saying it's a significant minority. So basically just saying that while it's a smaller population than the total population, it's still significantly out there. Now, what's important for me is that it's due to lack of comprehensive data. This is not the only area. And the elephant in the room is that, and for all those that are for medically, medicine, like the MAT program, medically assisted treatment, for helping people like with Suboxones and things like that. I'm not giving anybody a hard time. I've seen the value of Suboxone in our situation. All I'm saying is there's no data to support that keeps people sober. Maybe it kicks the can down the road, just like Narcan keeps people alive, but it doesn't necessarily help with sobriety. It just gets them alive to use another day in many cases. I'm not saying all cases. All I'm just saying is that generally speaking, in the opioid crisis and the addiction population, evidence is not readily available or supportive long enough for us to understand really what's going on right now, if it's actually working or not. One of the big things you'll hear now is that people are talking about how there's an improvement in the overdose deaths. There's an improvement in overdose deaths. We're still in the millions of deaths when we had, in the hundreds of thousands of deaths. In 2014, I think it was thousands of deaths. And now all these years later, we're over 100,000 deaths, but because we dropped off 3,000 deaths over last year, that somehow we're winning. Not at all. We're still way beyond where we were even 10 years ago. So the statistics and the data and all that in this whole world are sketchy at best. Here in this AI report, which is just, again, it's pulling from other things. Actually, two of the report, one is from American Addicted Doctors, and the other one's from the NIH, the National Institute of Health, which happens to be one of my customers in my real job. They support what it is that's being pulled over here that I'm sharing with you. But, limited reporting, subjective nature of the reporting. There's a variation in the quality of care. The point is there's so many moving parts in this whole thing. No wonder this thing is going on. And so my takeaway as I read this, there's a lot of places to dodge when somebody comes after you. So if your loved one is out there and they're struggling, and they're in a facility that's doing these types of things to them, the facilities, if you don't really go after it and understand where to even start, have so many places to hide. It's unbelievable. Because to this report saying there is limited reporting, and the reporting isn't really comprehensive in terms of the reports that are there. It's subjective in terms of what mistreatment even is. And there's a very high variation of quality of care. Well, that's true too. Even within our own city, we know which ones are bad and which ones are good. And then within the good ones, you have situations like we do with this one. I mean, generally speaking, the parent company of this place that we're talking about has a pretty decent reputation. But this facility and that counselor is playing games, and they're hiding within the way that they know how to push the rules. And honestly, based on this treatment plan that's supposed to be operated on and was compliant as of the date that it was supposed to be discharged, where's the justification for all the billing that's gone on since November 5th? I wonder. Sounds like fraud to me. So what do you do if you find yourself in this situation? I'm learning. I'll give you that right now. I'm no expert right now, but you can tell I've got some fire behind me. One is get the treatment plan. So I have the treatment plan here, and reviewing it doesn't take, to be a clinical person to see holes in this thing. All you got to be able to do is read dates and see it as your person completed the stuff that's in here. And if they have, and they're still there, question how many open beds are in the facility. And I have seen that. And guess what? There's a lot of them, and they have been for a while. And that's interesting too, because they've got a wait list. So I wonder, why is there a wait list? Maybe it's because there's not insurance for half the people on that wait list, and you can't get money from them. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but maybe. So when you get that treatment plan, if you're the person that's going in the treatment facility, make sure you get a treatment plan. I don't care what the situation is. Even if this is the greatest place in the world, they never do anything wrong. Get your plan. If nothing else, it's a motivation for you, because you understand what you have to do. You understand what progress looks like for you based on what you've agreed to with your counselor that's measuring your performance. So at least when you're in your head some days and you're feeling like you're never going to win, if you see your treatment plan, at least you go, all right, well, at least I'm here. It shows you progress, shows you what you have to do to get to the next gate. If you're involved in a court system or in child protective services or anything else, give them the treatment plan. Man, if you learn anything from what we are going through, make sure that the people that are measuring the performance in a treatment program let me reframe that. Make sure that if you find yourself in a situation where that you must successfully complete a program for you to be reunited with your children, make sure that all the agencies and personnel that are part of that program have a copy of what your treatment plan is and the rules surrounding it. Massively important. I'm learning that the hard way. I've remedied that. Next thing, make sure that the court programs know about it, because that way it's not well-meaning attorneys from county organizations and everything else speaking up about information that doesn't have any substance behind it. It's all word of mouth. And trust me, that stuff does happen. You can get text messages, anecdotal evidence presented in a family court matter like that can really damage your ability to be reunited with your kids. Make sure that you don't leave the supporting documents and data to anybody else. You have to own that and just be your own air traffic controller for the evidence of your good performance. And if you can't, find a family member that'll advocate for you that way. The next few things are really about what to do. Well, the next thing you want to do is make sure you get names, full names. It can't be just the first name. It's got to be full names of the counselors, the RAs, or anybody in your treatment program that's working with you. Have their full name. The next thing I would say, and this is really, really important, make sure that you follow the rules to your best ability. The reason I say that is because if you're in a situation like this, especially if you've got people that are acting wrong and fraudulently behaving or mistreating you, they will point to your misgivings always, always to get themselves out of Dodge. Because why? You're the easy target. You're an addict. You're an alcoholic. You're a whatever. You're the easy target. And without strong support, you're probably going to succumb to that and prove them right anyway. So make sure you follow the rules. Make sure you're respectful. There's always emotional times as you go through your recovery journey, but if you're not respectful of others, they're going to become active combatants for your well-being. That's human nature. As I mentioned in the last video, a lot of people that are in the treatment community also are not too far removed from their own time in the streets. So it's not like they've had years and years and years of clinical experience in many cases, especially at the peer and RA level. A lot of times they're only a year off the street. If that's the case, they may have their own demons that they're working through. So always be respectful. Don't be antagonistic at every corner. Pick your battles wisely. Don't just lose your mind over every freaking thing, because then you're going to just add to the stigma and add to the pile, no matter how irritated you are. What I do find interesting is there's plenty of data to measure why the resident is wrong. In this case, there's plenty of anecdotal evidence of why my loved one is always wrong, but yet it's so hard to get anything to show what they're performing to. Don't you find that interesting? I do, and I've decided not to let that go too. I've seen in my experiences and the total experiences I've had in life, not just this one, I've seen Justice Center cases. In New York State, we have the Justice Center. Justice Center is supposed to keep track of this type of thing and help, and then they're really good about investigating these types of activities. However, there's also a shortfall in good workers in treatment, and that's a legitimate problem. There's money problems. There's all kinds of things. So there's some sympathy for the treatment facilities, and I think in some cases grace given to them that they would never give another facility. A privately owned long-term care facility is not going to get the grace, even if that a addiction center will get, or a hospital. The hospital is not going to get the grace an addiction center is going to get if there's a client, having a hard time. They're going to consider all things, and in many cases kind of feel like the addiction center is a disadvantage anyway, so they may give them a little bit more grace. I've seen claims that I know for sure should be charged, criminally charged, and I've seen them just go away. I know for sure of a couple instances where the employee of a treatment facility should have been criminally charged and was not, with an investigation, which is tough to swallow at times. So where do we go from here? Well, this is what I'm doing. I'm getting on my channel and I'm being a voice. And at least in one video, I made a connection with a national advocate that works for the Department of Justice. That's great. And I'm excited about having that connection. And that connection has a personal story very similar to mine. So as fellow travelers, I've now got another voice that's going to defend my home. So a knucklehead counselor that's decided to be a bully and mean because they've got nothing else going on in their life that's worth living for, apparently, that they've decided to separate my family through erroneous comments and fraudulent billing practices. I'm going to keep going. So, what I'm doing is I'm educating you. I'm going to give you tips as I find them. I mean, I'm becoming what I'll be, as they say, even in my recovery. Hopefully some of the tips that I'm giving you are going to be useful to you as you go through these types of things. This is not easy. And prior to this experience, I would have been one that would have leaned on the side of the recovery facilities, because I do know the work is hard. And I also have a lot of people that are friends of mine that are going to be watching this going, take it easy, man. This is where I work. But, it's all fun and games until the mother of your children is getting her rear end kicked by a bunch of people for no reason at all. And she's being treated like trash and is now starting to feel like she is. That's where the real problem is. How long do you isolate a person, show them no progress or hope for progress, and expect their depressive event not to become additional trauma and lead to impairment? I wonder how long it is that they've got it here that they're basically waterboarding her brain under the guise of some noble rules that they clearly had no intention of adhering to, and with no end in sight. But they'll use terms like, well, um, it's like self-sabotage. I don't understand what she's doing. Oh, really? That's convenient, isn't it? Considering she was fully compliant on her discharge date. So with that, oh, and incidentally, one other thing with this whole situation, just as a sidebar, little quips, I started getting a little irritated again. Her second discharge date, that finally they had set one, the counselor decides not to show up for work on that day after 2 days before they've been watching me move her stuff out of the building. So this is the type of stuff's going on. There was no reporting of anything on those days. There was no indication that I shouldn't be moving those things out. In fact, she had her bed packed and was ready to go. That's how far she'd gone. That was after November 5th. That was in December before Christmas. 2 weeks before Christmas, December 16th. She was packed up to leave. And now they're blocking her from seeing her kids. And guess what? At her third-party addiction counseling and mental health counseling program made the statement, it's almost as if they're reading somebody else's chart. From a medical evidence perspective, from a urine screen and everything else perspective, both organizations agree. She's sober. So what's going on? We're going to continue to work on this, and I'm going to find out. But for now, if you are somebody that's struggling with this, please take some of the tips I've had. They might help you in your situation. If you are a support system for somebody you love, sometimes they lie to you, and sometimes they won't. They will create stinks that aren't really there, and they will give a counselor that's well-meaning and well-intended and doing the right job real headaches. They will. Sucks, but they will. And that's what makes it even more difficult when there actually is abuse, maltreatment, and fraud going on in a facility to prove it, because, you know, they're all like that, right? Well, in this case, my person's not a number, and I'm not going to let that happen. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, comment if you like, share. If you know somebody that's going through this and you need some support, as I find support systems, I'll share them with you. I'm hopefully gaining one tomorrow, and with permission, we'll probably share some information about that support system in the near future. But between now and the next time we talk, I'm going to do everything I can to stay out of trouble, and I hope you do too.